What is going on, you guys, and welcome back to the channel where today it's time for a Scream. Ranking, that is. Now, I want to preface this for anybody out there that may not be as familiar, because it's going to encompass a lot of what I'm about to say. So, this is a franchise that definitely has its shticks, right? It's part murder mystery whodunit, part slasher. It's a comedy that references horror's history while making fun of its tropes. It's topical at points, it's self-aware, and a bit of a parody of not only itself, but pretty much the entire horror genre as a whole. Now, with that being said, I would have to say that the biggest offender would have to be Scream 5. We are in the most modern era of elevated horror and a new batch of kids being supported by legacy characters here. And what I like about it, for one, is the violence, the brutality, because we're also in an era where carnage is king. So that's kind of nice to see, especially considering, that in a roundabout way is sort of a abnormality for this franchise. The other thing is everything they did or are doing with Sam's character, and having her as the daughter of Billy Loomis, who is on antipsychotics because she's having visions of him and is deathly afraid of one day potentially following in his footsteps. I really like that. I think they got something there. But beyond that, this film feels incredibly bland, and the legacy characters feel pretty worn out by this point. And I don't mean that as in that I'm worn out on them or didn't enjoy seeing them on screen again or having them be a part of this. I mean it as in they themselves feel pretty disconnected and disinterested in this project. And for all I know, I could be way off base with that. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. I don't know. That's just the impression that I got. And then the ending that falls completely on its face for me. Having these kids commit the murders because the most recent installment of Stab, which is the slasher franchise within the franchise, the movie within the movie, sucks. So they have this ingenious plan to do the killings to provide the plot for what will hopefully be a much better movie someday. I don't care. Massive eye roll. And you know what? They killed off Dewey in this one, so extra FU points to Scream 5. But up next is Scream 3. Now, what I like about it is what they're doing, what they did with Sydney's character. She's at the stage where obviously she's been through a lot. She's isolated herself, living in the middle of nowhere, operating under a false name, and just trying to salvage what little bit of normalcy she can out of her life. My biggest dislike about this one would have to be the entire premise, the plot being built around the filming of one of the Stab movies and having the cast die in the order that their characters do in the movie. I just feel like the bloom was well off the rose with all this sort of stuff for me at this point, and I just struggled really hard to get into it and care about it. And then we get to the twist, where we find out that Ghostface is not only the director of the Stab movie, but also Sidney's long lost sibling, who goes on to explain that Maureen, Sidney's mother, in a past life had been um, an actress who had a son that she effectively abandoned and rejected in favor of starting a new life. So she moves away, meets Sidney's father, and the rest is history. But as he gets older, he decides to try and find her, locates her, realizes the type of woman that she really is, and essentially orchestrates everything that has happened thus far. He takes all of the credit for what happens in the first movie. I don't love that, but I can appreciate that they at least tried something there, especially compared to Scream 5. Um, they made something work within the theme of, sexual abuse in Hollywood and how Hollywood is this dark, awful place to be and nobody should work there that they were going for. They were able to tie it into the first movie and everything. So I guess, for better or worse, at the very least, they got their trilogy. So that's got to speak for something. Up next, though, we have Scream 2. Again, love the character work here. Having Sidney in college at this point, struggling to cope with the unwanted fame that is the result of Gail Weathers' book being turned into a movie that is based on her life. And then, of course, naturally, the Ghostface killings start up again, on top of all of that. The movie itself is pretty good, fine, not much to say. As far as the twist goes at the end, as the red herring, you've got Mickey, and I know his motivations are meant to be topical. They're pointing fingers at violence in movie theaters, which was a huge issue at the time, or had been in the 90s, as well as the OJ trial, which is obviously another big event. But I personally got a lot more out of Billy Loomis's mom being involved in this is the primary killer, I guess. For one thing, I took it as what I assume was meant to be a reference to Friday the 13th, which I thought was kind of nice. I don't know if it really was, but that's immediately where my brain went when I realized she was involved and who she was and everything like that. But also within the context of this universe, if you think about it, Sydney's mom is directly responsible for ruining her family. She is the reason this entire, her happily ever after sort of imploded. And then Sydney is directly responsible for Billy's death. So, as far as I'm concerned, she's got all the motivation in the world to want to go after Sydney. And I guess overall, it's just a really competent sequel. I don't know. But right smack dab in the middle of our list, in third place, we have Scream 4. And this was the movie where I started to realize and it started to click. And admittedly, it probably should have clicked a little bit sooner, but nevertheless, it started to sink in that Scream, the essence of Scream, has very little to do with Ghostface, the killings, the carnage candy, all of that. Ghostface is really nothing more than the obvious symbol of this thing, the mascot. Um, Scream gets its bread and butter from its characters and kind of what they're doing from movie to movie. Where are they at in their lives when this new Ghostface pops up and the killings start, and what are they going to do about it, right? You can't have a Scream movie, with rare exceptions, without a Dewey, a Gale, a Sydney, all of them. Um, and the game up to this point, the murder mystery whodunit element has always been, who's behind the mask and how do they connect to Sydney directly. Um, as far as the movie goes, we're dealing with the modern era, at least by 2011 standards, of remakes and reboots. Um, and it was pretty much what I expected. I went into it with some idea of what I thought was going to happen, and it was pretty par for the course, for me, which is what made that ending stick out so well. Um, you've got the character of Jill, who is Sydney's cousin, who is kind of the main focus. She's kind of this protected character alongside Sydney because obviously they're family and Ghostface is always connected to Sydney, so therefore Jill is in constant danger and the audience is supposed to worry about her. But it turns out that she is the mastermind behind all of it. She is one half of the Ghostface duo, and maybe I'm a little bit biased in this because I love this type of storytelling where you have this seemingly harmless, very likable character, very non-threatening character actually turn out to be psychotic. I love that type of storytelling. But it was just a complete surprise to me that I probably should have seen coming. Admittedly, I may not have been paying as much attention as I should have, but I just had a lot of fun with it. I think up to this point, it was probably arguably the most violent that the franchise had gotten, and just having her beat the bejesus out of herself, liar liar style, to make herself look like a victim was just, she's just so crazy, and she just lets it all fly in a way that, I've seen. If I recall correctly, it's Emma Roberts. Somebody correct me on that. I've seen her in other movies. Obviously, I remember her from Nickelodeon. So just to see her in this role where she's completely villainized and everything was just a lot of fun for me. Um, but that is going to take us to our silver medalist for today, Scream 6. And I gotta be honest with you, after 5, everything that went on with 5, I was just a hoping and a praying that they weren't gonna drop the ball and completely ruined what little I liked about that movie. And on the legacy character side of things, I was just about to say, maybe it's time we move on from the original cast. Maybe we leave those characters behind in favor of something new. I'm very pleased to say, almost shockingly, that they did right by this. They fixed pretty much everything with it, and they made a solid sequel. And I think my favorite part of it is, Gale shows up again, which I guess is one thing Hey Gail, how you doing? But then they brought back Kirby, which was a massive fun surprise because she was personally my favorite character from 4, and I kind of, well, I assumed, as you're supposed to, that she died, so it was just a complete and utter shock to see her standing there and go, Kirby, you're back. I'm super excited that you're involved in this. But my point is that I really enjoyed how they actually used those legacy characters effectively in having them there and having them be important, but not overshadowing the characters that we're supposed to be invested in. They definitely let Tara and Sam have the spotlight, um, and lead this thing, and definitely put the emphasis on their developing story. And honestly, by this time, in watching all of these, this breathed some new life in me. This movie got me pretty excited again, and I'm very interested in Scream 7 now, which I would imagine will be the ending of this story in sort of a trilogy fashion. I don't really know. I don't know much about it. I haven't looked into it, but I am excited to see Scream 7 now. So, but that is just leaves number 1, the original. You can't beat a classic, flat out. And I'll tell you why. 2 names, Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich. This movie's just a classic. I can't tell you the amount of times that my wife and I have gone from our day-to-day lives through our day-to-day lives quoting Matthew Lillard's one-liners. Just the movie's just fun. It's the one Scream that I've seen the most, and it's just, I think it, how do I explain this? I think it encompasses everything that Scream is or was supposed to be. It's a very schlocky 90s movie. And the essence of that is just very much alive within the first movie. And I do have to say that, like, all of the references and stuff, as a horror fan, things get said, and I understand them. That was actually a lot of fun. And I think, um, you know, it's probably one of my high points of the movie because I genuinely enjoyed it being the first time that you experience it. But I think the issue comes in when you realize that that shtick is going to follow this franchise from movie to movie, and obviously you're going to get diminishing returns on that. But doesn't really affect my opinion of the movie overall. Um, like I said, it's still a lot of fun. Great characters, great one-liners, very quotable. Just a very 90s movie, and I love it. This is probably the I don't even know, third or fourth time I've watched it in recent years, and it's the one that's the most fun to go back to. So, that is going to wrap up our Scream ranking for today, but just a quick little recap before I say goodbye here. In last place, at number 6, we have Scream 5. After that, Scream 3. Scream 4 is next. In third place, Scream 4. In second place, Scream 6. And as it should be, in first place, my personal favorite, the original Scream. So that is going to wrap this video up, guys. So as always, Take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.